Bernard. I'm one of the presenters tonight, and we're going to be presenting our experiences along the border, working with migrants on both sides of the border, those that are on the desert, mainly in the Tucson area, and those that have been already caught and deported into Mexico.
My name is Dick Bernard, and I'm here just to answer any questions that we might have in regards to immigration along the border, and tell people what our work has been for the last 7 or 8 years along the border.
Good evening and welcome to Serenity with Dr. Reverend Pamela June Anderson. The primary mission of Serenity is to share with you information and inspiration. If we are to have peace on earth and goodwill toward all, it must first begin with individuals having peace within and goodwill toward all within. Please join me in reciting the prayer for which this television show is named. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This evening we are taping on location at St. Stephen's Community Church, and we are having a discussion on immigration, an interfaith issue. I'm going to ask that our guests here, who are here to share information and action items about immigration policies, how they affect people in Michigan, and what the faith community can do to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you have come from, and why this is such an important issue to you. Please, I'll start with you, if you'll take the mic.
Okay, my name is Max Angiano, Maximo, whichever way you want to say it. We started about probably 6 years ago. I got elected to a position at Crystal Lake Church because of the need. There were so many of our church has got a lot of undocumented immigrants at our church, and so I got elected to a position called a coordinator for Civil Rights for Immigrants Task Force. And then immediately there was a bunch of people started calling me and started calling our group, and we started going to jail. We started going to jails. We started helping them out everywhere we could. So from there we progressed. We went to Washington. We were part of the 400,000 that were at the National Mall in March of 2010. And anything we can get involved with, locally or individually, we try to help out. Whoever we can.
You will probably be the first presenter tonight. And the way this is going to go, ladies and gentlemen, is the person will make a presentation, and then there will be time for questions and answers. And then the next person makes the presentation, time for questions and answers, and so on down the line. So if the person next to you would also introduce yourself, how you got involved with this, and why is it important?
My name is Judy Olson, and I'm from the Unitarian Universalist Church of Greater Lansing and the Ingham Immigration Coalition. Immigration as a moral issue is a 4-year congregational study action issue in our denomination. I was at the convention where it was adopted, and at that time I had read some of the background material, a small amount, and went to some of the sessions to prepare to vote, and I realized that I really needed to learn something.
Outstanding.
My name's Reverend Tom Jones. I'm from First Congregational Church in Charlotte. My wife and I had gone down to San Diego to what the UCC calls an immersion experience, where we could see the wall separating San Diego and Tijuana, and then actually cross into Tijuana and talk with people there and see what was happening in their lives to help us gain a little deeper understanding about one piece of the immigration issues that we'll be discussing this evening. But the reason that I wanted to call everyone together for a workshop tonight was because I had gone to a rally at the state capitol. and I met the Reverend Catherine Bird from the Unitarian Church here in Lansing at that time, and she had introduced some of the people who are directly dealing with ICE in terms of facing and getting sent to a country where they don't know anybody anymore because they grew up here. They were American kids as far as I could see. They had gone to colleges that my tax dollars supported, and now that they were really smart, functional, good people, it just didn't make any sense to me that we'd want to send them to the country that we're competing against. So sending people back to China after we've educated them here for no good reason just didn't make sense to me. And I said, I want to talk to some people and figure this out. And so I met some other people from on this panel. But thank you all very much for coming this evening.
I'm Marilyn Bernard, and my interest, involvement goes back all the way to basically 1961-62 when my family had an exchange student from Mexico City in our home. I subsequently decided I wanted to learn Spanish, became a Spanish major, lived in Mexico City with a family, not her family, but with a family, and have spent 33 years teaching Spanish and traveling to both Spain and Mexico with my students. When my husband and I retired, we wanted to be as close to Mexico as we could get, and we have a retirement home in Green Valley, Arizona. We spend 5 months of the year there, 7 months here, and we're very involved with migrants on the border.
Hello, everybody. My name is Diego Bonasanti, or Diego Bonasati, and I am with the Alliance for Immigrants' Rights and Reform. And talking about immigration is sort of, my parents were immigrants from Argentina, and they were actually accidental immigrants. My mother had a fellowship to do her medical residency, and my parents went to the consulate 6 times, and this is back in the day when there wasn't a mile-long line outside the consulate. And they couldn't figure out a way for my father to get a visa to just work. And then the guy said, you know, for Pete's sakes, why don't you just immigrate? You don't have to stay if you don't want to. And I mean, their experience, and that is 1957 when that happened. And the experience of today are huge, huge difference. But I find even deeper the issue as I've been in this, involved in legal services or in other aspects for 23 years, and I find that the thing that really drives me is family reunification and keeping families together. And I think families are the bedrock of any society, and that is the unit that is receiving the most stress as a result of these laws.
While you have the mic, continue with your first 15 minutes.
Okay.
We'll make you first since you have the mic.
Okay.
Diego, a little closer to us.
Okay.
There you
A
go.
little better. Sorry about that. So the issue is, if you look at, for example, Pastor Tom mentioned families, when families are on both sides of the border, right? When you have somebody who's grown up here and then they're separated. And less the law allows for some form of leniency. Either, a person who's grown up here strikes me. I'm just taking a step back. When you look at the nomenclature, to me is important. I've always disliked the term illegitimate for a child. And one of the things that I liked in immigration law is you would see natural child, right? And I hadn't even known the term. I said, so, out of wedlock was the kind of clumsy way to do it. But I feel like the children who've been raised here, right, who, they They watch the Bears lose on Thanksgiving Day, right? I'm sorry, the Lions, I should have said. The Bears are all losing in other ways. So I'm conflating my two residences in the country. They grow up with these traditions. I can't tell you the number of kids that I've run into who were born someplace else, don't have papers, and they're waiting for their chance to serve in the military. Or they want to be a teacher. A lot of the dreams that anybody else has. But I feel that we've invested in them. And exactly as Reverend Thomas said, it's sort of like, it's a friendly harvest that we recoup them, right? We integrate them. And I feel that by letting them grow up here and then casting them aside, it goes from natural child to kind of bastard, right? Or illegitimate child. There's a way in which that treatment, to me, doesn't feel like what this country is about. And it's also something that sends a message. Because you have a child, a country in some ways is an additional parent. If we haven't moved anywhere, you don't necessarily think about it, right? There's so much is natural, and it's in the air, and it's in the background. And that's the thing that I struggle with the most, with the rigidity of some of these laws. And what they've done is they've taken away the discretion that immigration judges and other officials have had in the past to be able to keep folks here or keep families together. And politically, we're now in the wake of the 2012 elections. We're at a curious crossroads. In terms of two parties, of the two main parties, of late, really since 2005, the Republicans have come to be associated or perceived by immigrant Latino communities as hostile towards them. And which is interesting because if you go back to 1986, you had Ronald Reagan saying, Hispanics are natural Republicans, they just don't know it yet. Right? And he signed the Immigration Reform and Control Act, the law known as the amnesty. And you've had, I can cite numerous examples of Republicans who've been friendly and open to immigrants, whether it's at the national level, like Ronald Reagan. George W. Bush campaigned in 2000 saying that undocumented mothers and fathers were doing what any other parent would do, and that is to ensure that they're able to support their children. And that was in the campaign. He got 35% of the vote in 2000, and in 2004 he got 44% of the vote. So he was ascending. And there's other examples. You have currently Governor Snyder is positive in the sense of what you might call high-tech immigrants who are educated, right, and who could then be part of a building industry in Michigan. In Illinois, you've had both sides of the aisle, but Jim Edgar, George Ryan were both pro-immigrant, and it wasn't a big deal. It was just kind of a natural part of things. But with the challenges that the party faced around 2005, 2006, House Republicans were looking for a way to deal with popular dissatisfaction with the way the war was going in Iraq. And this was before the surge and before the Sunni awakening. And many of them, out of the National Campaign Office, decided to attack immigrants as a defense. And they hopped onto a bandwagon that had already formed, and the association has grown since then. And there's previous examples. You go back to 1994 with Proposition 187 in California and Governor Pete Wilson. And the shame of it is there's plenty of Republican leaders who've been very open, but at the same time not, addle-brained or anything about the immigration question. So, for example, Orrin Hatch of Utah was an original sponsor of the DREAM Act, together with Illinois Democrat Dick Durbin. John McCain was a co-sponsor with Ted Kennedy on several proposals for immigration reform. Significantly, in the 2010 primaries, these two, among many others, were pressed from the extremist or nativist part of the wing. Part of it was with the Tea Partiers, to abandon those positions. So you've seen a lot of these folks who were moderates being pushed aside or quieted, right? And I would say that the natural position of Orrin Hatch and John McCain will be one that recognizes family and connection and contributions, and that many people would like to be part of the United States. And they've had to suppress that. And I think that's a shame, right? And I think at this point, the party is kind of waking up from something of a hangover in that President Obama was re-elected, and they're reading the tea leaves. And unfortunately, what saddens me is that they're not saying, this is not what we're about. We should really be supporting this. It's more about, sheesh, we'll be out of a job if we don't, we gotta draw some of the people. And it's people sometimes do things for the right reasons or for the wrong reasons, but they are looking at the issue of not alienating the Latino vote, which is increasing. And it's gone from 9% in 08 to 10% this year. And the break rate has gone more severely from 67% for Obama in 2008 to 71% in 2012. And so the positive aspect about that is that it opens up the discussion. And Speaker of the House Boehner has approached President Obama to have discussions about reforming immigration. So we are at I think this is a very appropriate time to have this panel because you're going to see a lot of this conversation happening in the coming months, probably after the fiscal cliff. But this will be one of the future things you'll be reading about in the next year.
Outstanding. Are there any questions? Do you have any questions? Is Reverend Diego?
Oh, I'm not a reverend.
Any questions from the audience? We've got about 4 minutes for questions. Please. You need to speak in the mic, sir.
You seem to bring up the DREAM Act, and where does that stand now? Is it going to be brought up again?
I imagine, at this point, assume that anything from here till the new Congress is inaugurated January 4th next year, nothing else is going to move, I don't think. Now, there's a DREAM Act that's floating around somewhere. I don't think it got close to a floor vote in this session. I would imagine that would be renewed in the next session. But in addition, I think that they are going to be looking at a larger plan that would also deal with what they call future flow. That's people coming in the future and having a way to be able to moderate that, as well as legalizing the parents of dreamers. These are all going to be things discussed in the coming year.
Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering, on the state level, with the new or old people that just got voted back in, or new people, do you see a change perhaps in attitude among our state legislature and to be more supportive?
Well, I haven't caught that yet, and in part it's because we get less information, right? It's like the federal folks get the most attention. What I do know is that there is an issue. Folks have heard of Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA, which is sort of like you might call it a pre-dream act or a daydream. I think they're but it was, President Obama was using existing powers of the immigration authorities to give a temporary permit to essentially folks defined in the bills, in the DREAM Act bills, essentially students, arrived as youth, and so forth. Now these folks are getting work permits and Social Security cards. And Secretary of State Ruth Johnson has determined that they're not eligible for driver's licenses. And this, I think it hangs on the twist of a phrase, but a whole class of people with these interim and transitional statuses are able to apply for driver's licenses. And essentially what they have in common is they have a work permit, they have a social, and all of these folks, by the way, have gone through more rigorous background than any of us here have. They've been fingerprinted, and their photos have gone through all the databases in the federal government. So both she and Governor Snyder have said that they're not going to issue these licenses. Last Friday, I know at least Max and you, were you also? Okay. All right. I know you were there in spirit. Okay, good. We were at the Capitol basically saying, this doesn't make any sense. These folks get work permits, but then they can't drive to work. And so there's going to be some pressure on that. And the question is, do they see themselves as insulated from what national level Republicans, especially in certain swing states, are concerned about? Or, it's not clear to me yet. Their official line is so far, no change. But I think that over time, in the coming months, I think that they're going to, whether they relent because it's common sense, because there's political pressure, or because they lose the legal argument, which I think their legal arguments will be. One way or another, that's going to I think they're going to have some realizations, whether they know it now or not.
You will have an opportunity in the next segment of the program to raise additional questions. I am hoping, Pastor Tom, that this is something that we can do once a year, and as this grows and the word gets out that we are attempting to be socially responsible, social advocates on the issues of immigration and how it affects our churches and how our churches can get involved, that we will just continue to do this until we reach the critical mass. How's that? In the meantime, back at the ranch, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to visiting with you again and hope you will include in your daily prayers, God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Until next time, serenity.
Stay tuned for more episodes from Serenity.
Good greetings from Serenity with Dr. Reverend Pamela June Banks Anderson. We are on location at St. Stephen's Community Church, United Church of Christ. We have members here on this subject as we discuss this subject of immigration and interfaith issue. We have guests here that will be introducing themselves shortly hereafter. The primary purpose of Serenity is to share with you information and inspiration. If we are to have peace on earth and goodwill toward all, it must first begin with individuals having peace and goodwill within. Please recite with me the prayer for which this show is named. God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This time we are going to continue the show with our sister Marilyn Bernard, immigration educator with Samaritans, Green Valley, Arizona, who lives 7 months of the year with us here in Lansing, and then for 5 months of the year, when it gets good and cold, she leaves us here suffering and goes to Arizona. Sister Marilyn, again, tell us a little bit about yourself and why this is so important to you. And then you have an additional 10 or 15 minutes before we go into questions and answers.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here tonight and to be invited to participate in this panel. My interest in Spanish and in the Mexican people in particular, I know this is about immigration in general, but my focus is Mexico. Goes back to when my family had an exchange student in the 1961-1962 school year. I subsequently became a Spanish major, taught Spanish at the high school level for 33 years, traveled with my students to both Spain and Mexico on numerous occasions, and wanted to retire somewhere close to Mexico, as well as be somewhere warm. And we, after much travel, settled on Arizona, Green Valley, which is 25-30 miles off the Mexican border. And that's where we spend 5 months out of the year working on immigration issues. We came to that rather slowly by attending seminars just like this and getting to know Green Valley, getting to know Southern Arizona, and were invited at one of the seminars that we attended to join a group called Samaritans, which is a faith those spots regularly. Many of them, in fact, many of these bodies are found by people who are hiking. It's their hiking trails, they're walking their dog, or they're going out for their walk. So that's what little we feel that we can do to make sure that these people aren't totally forgotten. We also do things like this in Arizona. This is probably my 7th or 8th presentation to actually be involved on a panel, and I've attended many, many more. Many of the churches down there do them. The Samaritans do a border issues fair the 3rd Saturday of January every year. We also lobby for immigration reform. We spend almost as much time in Phoenix as we do in Green Valley. And that's something that you all can be involved in as well. You've already heard that this is coming. The immigration reform is coming. You know, you can write your congresspeople, phone them, let them know what your feelings are on that issue. We also operate in Mexico. There are 4 shelters in Nogales, which is right across the Mexican border. It's actually Nogales, Arizona, and Nogales, Sonora. 2 are private, run by wonderful Mexican families, extended families, who basically have dedicated their lives and their fortunes, so to speak, to helping the migrants. One is run by the Mexican government, and the one that we work at most often, which is referred to as El Comedor, because they serve food there twice a day, is run by the Catholic Church, the Sisters of the Holy Eucharist. And that's where we do most of our work, although we do work at all of the shelters. But the meal, the main breakfast is served at roughly 9 o'clock, and then we're allowed to go in about 10:30. And we do much of the same type of work as we do on the other side. We do first aid, we pass out clothing, shoes, socks, toiletries, towels, blankets. And, oh yeah, my husband's making. Yes, one of the most important things that we do is give people the opportunity to make phone calls. Many of them are deported. They have no money, they have no way of contacting anyone. We allow them to use our phones. Several of our members have the international cell phones. Or sometimes we make the calls for them. We make contact with their families for them. We also help them if they want to go back, and we encourage them to go back. We say, please don't be one of those red dots on that map. We don't want to see your name on that map. Please don't go back into that desert. And if they want to go back home, we buy them bus tickets. And we have a deal with one of the people down there who owns a small bus station. It doesn't go real far, it goes maybe just a couple 100 miles either way, anyway, in Mexico. But he gives us a discount on tickets. He's very involved in the movement with us. The troops along the Arizona border to, quote, start shooting, unquote. Samuel Wolsbacher, known to most as Joe the Plumber, made an appearance at a fundraiser for an Arizona state senator over the weekend and told the audience that the way to solve the country's immigration problem is to station troops along the border and have them start shooting. For years, this is a quote, for years I've said, you know, put a damn fence on the border going to Mexico and start shooting. I'm running for Congress, and that should be a bad thing to say. But you know what? It's how I feel. I want my borders protected. I'm very adamant about that. He did lose, thank God. But it does also remind us during the primaries of Herman Cain, who said we should electrify the fence and fry them all. This is not pretty when you live right off the Arizona border. It is not the least bit pretty. It's vicious, it's nasty, it's hostile. Let me give you the Samaritan response. Received this email on Monday, October 22nd from one of my fellow Samaritans. Yesterday afternoon, we were flagged down by a migrant right by the creek bed just off Aravaca Road. He was a young adult male named Carlos from Tijuana, on his way to Phoenix, where his wife and children are, whom he has not seen in 3 years. He speaks good English, and as we were talking, more migrants came out from hiding in the heavy brush of the arroyo. I'm not sure how many were in their group, but I saw at least 5 or 6 who all looked to be in their 20s and 30s and in fairly good shape. Carlos said that they had been walking in the desert for 8 days and had been 3 days without food or water. However, he said that they were all okay medically and wanted to keep going. He asked if we had any food and water to give them. We gave them all the food and water we had, probably not enough, and I told him where we were. He offered to give me money for food and water, to which I, of course, said no. He asked me if I could call his wife Sandra in Phoenix to let her know he was okay. I called Sandra, who cried for most of our conversation. She was very thankful for the call because she had been worried sick about him. She had heard from him 3 days ago, which was about when they were running out of food, and she knew that he was crossing in Arizona. So there you kind of have both sides of the story. Another brief thing that I would like to say about working to try to keep people in Mexico. These people do not want to come here for the most part. They want to be with their families. They want to be with their loved ones. They want to be in the home that they love, just like you love your home. And one of the things that we can all do is to support microloan projects. Many of our churches are involved in things like that. There's an organization called Kiva, which puts out microloans all over the country. But of course, our churches along the border in Arizona, we try to focus ours towards Mexico, or Latin America anyway, as a way to keep many of these people there, to make them solvent, to give them a way to earn a living. The pendant that I'm wearing is from a microloan project, women in Nogales, Sonora, who make these pendants as well as other jewelry, and they make these pendants specifically for us. They say "No Mas Muertes" on them, and they make them specifically for our coalition. We then sell them.
My name is Dennis Gates. My question to you is, because I'm new to this, don't know the terminologies. You might understand that there's leaders that bring these people across, like what I would refer to like the Underground Railroad.
Yes.
Go back and forth all the time, bring other groups over.
Yes, they're referred to as coyotes in Spanish, or polleros, chicken hawks. I'm not sure why, but that's the term. And yes, they do. Some people do come independently, but yes, most of the time they do come with a coyote, and they pay him to get them across the border. The problem is, across the border is some of the driest desert that we have in this country, if you're talking the Arizona sector, the Tucson sector. And so, okay, here you are, you're in the US, bye, and they leave them. Now, sometimes they do get them all the way to Tucson. It depends on how much money you paid. It depends on what the arrangement was that you made with your coyote. And sometimes they do try to get them all the way to Tucson or all the way to Phoenix, but usually what they do is they contract to get them, pardon?
Just over the border?
Yes, just over the border. And then they're out wandering around in the Arizona desert for 8 or 9 or 10 or 12 days and don't know where they are.
Other questions at the other end? You'll pass it down. Give your name, please.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. My name is John Kermit. I just wondered if, given the political climate in Arizona, do you get a lot of resistance from the locals and the political establishment there opposing what you're doing, helping people?
Yes. In fact, people will say to me sometimes, they'll say, aren't you afraid out there? You know, we hear about all the stuff in Mexico, all this violence, and I say, no, we're only afraid of our fellow Americans, the Minutemen, the militia members, the guys like this who say, start shooting. We have been threatened. I personally never have, but members of our coalition out on the desert have been threatened with guns by people. It's toxic. It really is. It's toxic on the Arizona border.
Other questions?
I have Frank Dennis, Edward United Church. What are your suggestions? Now, you mentioned about micro enterprise, but I assume micro enterprise isn't going to solve a lot of problems. What should the United States be doing in terms of economic assistance, or what have you, with Mexico?
Well, I'm not sure that the United States really can do anything about the economic situation in Mexico other than get rid of NAFTA, which has just been an unmitigated disaster for the poor people of Mexico. It's been fine for the wealthy and the middle class, but these people have lost their lands to eminent domain, and especially some of these people in the Mayan areas, the peasants, the Indian, the Native American peasants have done nothing for 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 years but farm the land, so they gave them a fair price for their land. So, what are they going to do now? But we're stuck with NAFTA, I think. All 3 countries, North American countries, are signatories to it. I don't see any way that it's ever going to change. I don't think that we will get anywhere trying to interfere in Mexico's economic system any more than we would tolerate them up here interfering in ours. I do think, though, that what we have to have is some agricultural visas. We don't even necessarily, we need more green cards, but a lot of the people that we work with don't want to be citizens. I've heard a great deal in the last week since the election about we have to get a path to citizenship. Well, we already have a path to citizenship. It takes a long time. It takes 10, 15, 20 years sometimes. It's way too long, but it's there. What we don't have is any way to come here legally in the first place. There are virtually no agricultural visas being issued, and there are virtually no green cards being issued. And I think if we were to go back to the policies that we had, and this is fairly recent, this is mainly since 9/11 attacks that these crackdowns have come, and the Mexicans were not responsible for 9/11. Those people were in the country legally, and the Mexicans had nothing to do with it, but they're the ones who are doing the bulk of the suffering, and we really just have to have some visas so that these people can come here legally, do the work, go back, which is what most of them want to do then, and put a roof on their house, or bring running water in, or bring electricity in. If you got a chance to look at some of the pictures that we have back there of how the people live, you will see why they want to come. But most of them don't want to stay. This is a fallacy that we have, that everybody just wants to come here and live here permanently, because they don't. But once they get here, we now don't allow them to go back. They can't go back and forth freely as they could basically before 9/11.
We saw our technician, Brother Span, taping a conversation with your husband and taking some photos back there, and we're hoping that we'll be able to, kind of fade those in and out on the video. Pastor Tom, the more I'm listening, the more I realize how critical this is for churches, not just the United Church of Christ, but for churches across the board, synagogues across the board, mosques across the board, to be a part of our effort to address this immigration issue. And I'm wondering, are there any churches in Arizona that are helping you with memorial services? And what is being said about, are there morticians that are helping out gratis? This is appalling that people are being found dead. And it's almost like, okay, well, I had dinner and I had for dinner, A, B, C, and D, and what's the big deal? I'm quite alarmed that this is, that America is really crossing the border, and we are experiencing this on common ground. Abandoned by us. And so, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it, the second segment of a conversation with the panelists and interfaith issue, immigration and interfaith issue. We will very shortly be going into the third segment, when you will hear from the two remaining panelists. But we want to say before we close this segment that if you have any questions, if you have any interest in bringing a panel to your congregation, please give Pastor Tom Jones, a Justice Witness Advocate, a call. His telephone number is area code 517-231-3304. Any interest that you may have in bringing us to your location, so that your congregations, so that your synagogues, so that your mosques can have a conversation on the subject of immigration and interfaith issue. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to visiting with you again and hope you will include in your daily prayers, God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Until next time, serenity. That have been abandoned by us. And so, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it, the second segment of a conversation with the panelists and interfaith issue, immigration and interfaith issue. We will very shortly be going into the third segment, when you will hear from the two remaining panelists. But we want to say before we close this segment that if you have any questions, if you have any interest in bringing a panel to your congregation, please give Pastor Tom Jones, a Justice Witness Advocate, a call. His telephone number is area code 517-231-3304. Any interest that you may have in bringing us to your location, so that your congregations, so that your synagogues, so that your mosques can have a conversation on the subject of immigration and interfaith issue. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to visiting with you again and hope you will include in your daily prayers, God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Until next time, serenity. Alanis, did I pronounce that?
Castellanos.
Castellanos.
Two L's.
Two L's. She is our United Church of Christ Justice Witness Advocate in Washington, D.C. And she has joined the panel. We thank God that you made it. I don't know how anybody gets lost in Lansing, but it's
What can I say? I have been told if I think I should turn to the right, I should always turn to the left.
I see. We will be hearing from her shortly, but at this time we're going to turn the mic over to Judy M. Olson. She is a Unitarian from the Unitarian Universalist Church of Greater Lansing and the Immigration Coalition. For those who will be watching this from places other than Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County is the county that that Lansing is in. Okay, for the most part, yes. So, Sister Olson, it's all yours.
Thank you.
A little closer.
Okay. If you see my hand waving, it's because I want the next slide. And I will begin by waving my hand. Very good. I'm going to start out with my immigration story. Ryan Bates at the Alliance for Immigrants Rights and Reform often says that that's what we should be doing, is telling our stories. And my grandfather and all my great-grandparents came from Norway. They came in the last half of the 19th century. The first one came in 1854, the last one in 1893, and they came to Wisconsin, central Wisconsin to be exact. One of them was a stowaway. He was escaping the draft. One came on one day's notice. There was passage on a boat with his cousin, so his mother packed his bag. He was a teenager. He was 18 years old. That was my grandfather. When they came here, they certainly had a very challenging life. One of the couples lost their firstborn child on the way over. They were farmers. Farming in central Wisconsin isn't an easy way to make a living. But one thing that did not happen, they were never threatened with deportation. When they checked in at Ellis Island, in fact, they could even take the name of their choice. So my grandfather, who was Isaac Martinus Johannesson Vannebu, or something like that in Norway, became Martin Isaac Johnson. And that's how I knew him. Some immigrants, of course, had their names changed because the person writing it misspelled it. In my grandfather's case, he chose it. Did they learn English? Well, some did, depending upon the age at arrival. Their children, however, were bilingual, and my parents' generation was as well. Now, why would that be? Well, my parents and their siblings had to communicate with their grandparents. There weren't babysitters back then. The grandparents helped out. So, the kids and the grandkids learned Norwegian, and in fact, they didn't speak English until they went to school. There were Norwegian church services in the church where I was baptized, as a matter of fact, our family's church at that time, until 1948. Only once a month, and of course it was controversial by that time. There was a lot of pressure not to do it and a lot of pressure to. But 1948, that's not so terribly long ago. Then the question comes, could they vote? Well, yes, the men could vote, and believe it or not, they didn't have to be citizens. They only had to declare that they were going to apply for citizenship. Two of the women were still living when women's suffrage came about. They were elderly by that time. I have no idea whether they actually practiced the vote or not. Now, compared to today's immigrants, I didn't really think a lot about that until the UU Association, the Unitarian Universalist Association, our parent organization, was considering immigration as, at the end of the evening, we will show the movie Abused, the Postville Raid, which is about the raid on a meatpacking plant in Postville, Iowa. And a lot of the immigrants who were in that meatpacking plant at the time were from Guatemala. So that is the connection there. Plus the maker of the film has a connection with our congregation. There is a very worthwhile video on the internet that you might be interested in seeing that gives you a real feel for the dilemma of undocumented immigrants. It's only about 20 minutes, and I'm going to let you pronounce this, if you would.
Sin país.
Okay, that is the title of it. Translated, it is Without Country. It's a little difficult to find. I put the entire URL there, but I did find that if you look for the title of it, the Sin Pais, and then you put in PHP and full, F-U-L-L. Rather strange, but I think that will take you to the correct URL so that you can view it. So I am from the Immigration Coalition, and that is our email. And again, you can sign up for the listserv, the IIC listserv, at the table in the back. And I put my my personal email there as well if you would like to contact me.
Thank you. Are there questions? Do we have questions? Questions of anyone who has presented so far?
My name is Bill Mahler, and it almost seems as though this has become a states' rights issue, made that way by the government that along the border. Now, it's really a federal issue. Why hasn't federal government got involved in this and made sure that the laws of the federal government are enforced? Arizona has a reputation. They want to take over the national park that is there for the big ditch. And they had been stopped by the rangers, keeping them out of the park. So they are very aggressive people in that respect. What's happening with the federal government in regard to this?
Well, I can tell you a little bit. In Arizona, it's the federal government who's building the wall. It's the federal government who's putting all of the Border Patrol agents down there. So I would say that the federal government is extremely involved, certainly in Arizona.
With Dr. Reverend Pamela June Banks Anderson. We are taping on location, immigration, and interfaith issue. We thank you for joining us today. We want you to know that our primary mission here in Serenity, or the program Serenity, is to share with you information and inspiration. If we are to have peace on earth and goodwill toward all, then we must first have peace and goodwill within. Please join me in reciting the prayer for which this show is named. God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We are continuing with a series of conversations from the panelists that you see here at the table. And in this fourth segment of the show, we will be hearing from our dear friend Max Anguano from Cristo Rey Parish, Action of Greater Lansing, Civil Rights for Immigrants Task Force, and a very experienced advocate. And our time together will be wrapped up, so to speak, by our special guest from Washington, D.C., the United Church of Christ Justice and Witness Advocate, Reverend Mari Castello. Is that close? I was trying to make it sound close. We are on location here at St. Stephen's Community Church, United Church of Christ, in Lansing, Michigan. So it is all on you. Please reintroduce yourself and tell us why you are interested in this particular subject, and include in your introductions why this is important to mid-Michigan. And let me just park here parenthetically and say, we have not been wearing the same clothes for 6 weeks. It just takes us 6 weeks to show the entire taping 1 week at a time. Okay.
Thank you, Reverend. My name is Maximo Ungiano, or Max, whatever you call me, whatever you want to call me. Like I said, we got involved with this issue about 6 years ago. I got elected to a position at Crystal Ray Church, coordinator of the Civil Rights for Immigrants Task Force. And right away, there was all kinds of people coming to us. I mean, because we have 600 families at our church. I would take a guess and say probably half of them are, okay, 1/3 of them probably undocumented at our church. You know, a very big percentage of them. And how we got involved was they were being deported. Our immigrants were being picked up all the time, every week, 2-3 days a week. There would be a call saying that they would be calling us, and they would be saying, hey, so they had no idea what to do, because they had no idea. They didn't speak. A lot of them didn't speak English, and so we jumped right in. We just back then when they first came to us, they would call me to the church. We went to the church. And then we would go to the place where they were incarcerated at, and they would let me talk to them. I told them, I said, I'm from the church. I said, we're just here to help these people. And then they would let me in a lot of times. I'd say out of 20 times I went to the incarceration centers, probably 2 or 3 times they wouldn't let me in. So we've been to Ingham County. I've been to Battle Creek Detention Center. I've been to Monroe County. I've been to Detroit. Just over there, deliver messages, delivering money, delivering on a letter. That's the only thing they'll let you take. They won't let you give them clothes or food or anything, but they'll let you give them that stuff. So that's how we got started, and then from there we started having to do all kinds of stuff at our church, because these people, I got to know these people. They go to my church, and they're God-fearing, hard-working people. And they're good people. I mean, and I had, it just didn't make any sense to me that these people are being, torn apart from their families, and they're being imprisoned or incarcerated, and then they're being shipped back to Mexico. So we started, so we got on the personal side at first, and then we started having civil rights, know your rights, and then we started getting involved. Of course, we all know immigration used to be a federal issue, but it got to be a state issue when the states getting involved with it. So we were involved in the federal issue for a long time. We've been to Washington, we've been to Chicago, we've been to Detroit. In 2010, like I said, we were part of the 400,000 that was at the National Mall in Washington in March of 2010, and 2 times in 2010 we went to Kalamazoo. The president was there for a commencement exercise. We had a march there. It was about maybe 1,000 of us, there. And then we went to Ann Arbor. Our president was there for another commencement exercise. So we were there, and there was about 5,000 of us there. So we did everything from the national to the state issue to be involved with the immigrants personally, what has happened recently, like I said, we've been doing everything. When there used to be some state anti-immigration laws, we'd go to the Capitol. Some of the people here that are at this function here, we would go to the state capitol. We would get to say a couple words, and maybe, not all the time. If you put a impressive enough title on your paper, they would let you say something. So we had to lie once in a while, So we'd go to the state, but it's been good lately. There hasn't been hardly any. There was a little bit at one time. The Agema from Granville was trying to start some anti-immigration laws here in Michigan, but it kind of the committees you ever go to, we kind of shut them down. So they didn't, it wasn't really a problem. So it's been pretty good here in Michigan, actually, But the latest thing we were involved in, as Diego said at the end there, there's the DACA program, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. Our main function was to go there. Actually, we get most of our main actions is from air. They say they're doing this, and then they want us. Of course, we're the capital. We're right here. Our task force, and we say, oh yeah, we want to be involved. Count us in. What do we got to do? So we had I had 300 of those action postcards to hand to whoever we could, a representative of the state. So okay, what it was, a deferred action for childhood arrivals. We had this rally. There was at least 200 people there, maybe 300. And what had happened was all these dream students were talking, and they were, they have, as we know, as I think, and many other people here think the same way. These students, they have, this is the only country they know. They know nothing else, and some of them don't even speak Spanish. So so to deport these students, it's basically a tragedy. But finally, the DACA program came into effect. But then as we know, the Secretary of State, as Diego was saying, doesn't want to let these DACA approved applicants receive driver's licenses. And so we had this big rally for that, and a little bit of issues that were going on in Detroit too. The ICE agents going close to the schools and trying to pick up undocumented immigrants. But back to the DACA issue, so we had this big rally, and it was good. And then after we got done having the rally, we went into the Capitol, walked around and doing our chants. What is democracy? This is democracy, and some other chants, And then we finally went over to the governor's office, The governor wasn't there, but I was one of the representatives that got to stay inside. Because I had a bunch of postcards from Lansing, and so there was about seven DACA students, all young people. I was the only old person there, that got to go in because I had these postcards to hand to the governor, and so we got to talk to the chief of staff over there. I can't remember his name right now, but we were explaining everything to him. I mean, he very, very cooperative, listened to us, and we were just saying we want to work with the state of Michigan, with the governor, with the Secretary of State to make Michigan a better state. We know the governor is talking about rebuilding this state, and we're all saying, okay, definitely, that's why we are here. How can we rebuild the state if these students cannot have driver's licenses? I mean, here we want these students to go to school here. We give it, the DACA program gives them permission to go to school here, And so, but Michigan and Arizona are the only two states that are not allowing these DACA-approved applicants to receive driver's licenses. So, we're telling them, this doesn't make any sense, Chief of Staff, that the governor wants to rebuild Michigan, but these students, if they cannot have driver's licenses, why would they go to school here? And then after they receive their education, why would they stay here if they cannot receive a driver's license? It just doesn't make any sense. Look at all the money besides the humane issue, look at all the money this state can make through driver's license fees, insurance, any car-related items, And so we're trying to help Michigan, and so the Secretary of State is saying her hands are tied, and wait a minute, your hands are tied. It doesn't make any sense to us at all because basically these students are here on they're going to have a social security number. They say you cannot get a license without a social security number. Number one, okay? And then what was my other point there? but but we all want to help, these, the humane issue, but economically, this will help Michigan. So we were, what it ended up happening is we were telling the chief of staff all this stuff, And we are going to have a meeting real quick coming up. I have to check my email today. I haven't had a chance to check it, but from today through the rest of the week, they're going to email all those people that were meeting with the chief of staff, telling us when we can have a meeting with the head people in charge of this issue. I don't think the Secretary of State is going to be honest with you. We're trying to, we're trying to approach this as an economical issue because it is important for Michigan, university-wise, car-wise, all that stuff. We're going to have we ended up we're going to have a meeting with them, with the head people involved in this issue to try to solve this problem, because we're telling them we are not here demanding, shouting, or this and that. We are here peacefully to try to make Michigan a better place for everybody. And it just makes sense to us. This would give the state all kinds of money, and any other way you want to look at it. It's good for the state, and it's a humane issue too, And hopefully as the Diego said earlier, that Speaker of the House John Boehner, he's saying that maybe comprehensive immigration reform, we should talk about it with the President of the United States. It sounds good, we think we know the reason is because they want votes, but we don't care whatever the reason is. If they can come out to a good, humane answer to this problem, we're all for it. Any way it can be established. Okay.
Pastor Tom, it occurred to me while he was speaking to ask the question, are all of us, quote unquote, kind of members of the Justice Witness team that you have organized, tonight? And where am I going with this question? Is it, when any of us are speaking to officials, do we speak with the authority of all of us behind us? That's really where I'm going with the question.
We have several groups represented, and one of the nice things about this was we can learn about what the other groups are, get in contact, get on people's email lists so that we can facilitate knowing what we can do to make some systemic changes for the better. So if you're getting like an email from the Alliance for Immigrant Rights and they're doing something, you'll know about it, and then you can take it back to your local congregation and get more people to show up and let our elected leaders know that this is important and we're doing it as a faith community from various faith communities. So there's lots of different groups that you can meet with today, but there's not one that includes absolutely everybody that I know.
Okay, but do we have an email, a name and an email address for everybody on the panel?
Yes, we do.
And can we kind of agree that we will keep each other informed and
Yes.
also keep Reverend Mari informed, because what she's doing in Washington, D.C., and how we can be of help to her, let her know when we're coming to the city, and that type of a thing.
Yes, sounds great.
That would be awesome. Are there other questions? Other questions? Oh, don't be shy. Okay. If we can get a mic to her, Brother Prince. Okay. Thank you.
So Max, I was wondering if you could update us on the getting identification for undocumented people here in Ingham County.
Can you say that again, Ann, please?
You know, how the efforts that you've made, if you could update us, the efforts you've made as part of Civil Rights for Immigrants to help people here get proper identification so that if they're stopped, they won't be
Right.
imprisoned.
We would, both police, Ingham County Sheriff's Department and Lansing Police Department have told us, we was with, because our immigrants that come up to us, they're scared to death of being stopped by the police officers, by regular police. So we didn't know what their procedure was when they stop somebody that appears to be undocumented. They don't speak English real well. So we went to them on a series of meetings. We went to both agencies about 3 times, and they had told us, over that time that they're not interested in anybody's immigration status. And in fact, at our Nehemiah here, it was October 16th, I think it was. We had them come up there and swear in front of about 200 people, saying that that they are not interested in anybody's immigration status. They treat somebody just like they treat these people just like they would anybody else. When they're stopped, when they are stopped, they ask them for license, insurance, and registration. When most of them are still driving on a expired driver's license. So when they stop them, they show them an expired driver's license, and then they say, okay, your license is expired, so you have to appear in court this day. Then they check out who they are, because they might be a criminal. If it's a criminal, they will take them to jail. But if they haven't got a warrant for their arrest, they will just issue them a ticket and call them and say, somebody else with the license in the car can drive home. If you're not in court this day, it will be a warrant for your arrest. So okay, so we went to them and we worked with them in establishing the Particular Consular as a credible ID, and that is a citizen of Mexico ID is what it is. So they will both accept the Particular Consular and an expired driver's license as a credible ID. So if they see who they are, they check their background, they check who they are, they won't take them to jail. And then once they go to jail, I've been to court with them before. They don't ask them their immigration status. I've been to St. John's, I've been to Ingham County here in the city of Lansing. All they do is tell them, okay, here's your fine, don't drive. They don't ask them, why are you driving on an expired driver's license? They say, here's your fine, don't drive. You can pay in payments if you have to, this and that. So we've had some progress there on that bit too.
Other questions?
I'd just like to add.
Pass her the mic, please.
I'm Ann Francis, and I'm part of the Ingham Immigration Coalition, and we work very closely with the Civil Rights for Immigrants group. And I have to say that it has been a wonderful collaboration. And the Civil Rights for Immigrant group meets the last Tuesday of the month. And for people who want to have some direct contact with and support and understand the issues, that is a very, very good thing to support and be part of. And thank you, Max, for all that you've done for this community.
And we want to thank your group, Ingham Immigration Coalition, and Tom's and whoever else here, because you have helped us out a lot. Because it's good to get other people involved besides just Latinos. Because our group is basically Latinos. But there are some white people. Excuse me. White people, okay, I'll say that, and so, but there are some, but having you guys there has been great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Quick, pass the mic to her, please. Your name?
Barb Tipo, from the Ingham Immigration Coalition also. Quick question, Max. With those postcards, many of us have been distributing them and have them on our social action tables at church and all. There are some in the back here, if you have not signed a postcard to Secretary of State Ruth Johnson. And I also wondered when you need them to present, or is it an ongoing effort?
Well, no. The next meeting we're going to have, I want to present some more postcards, excuse me. So whenever we can get them, I'll take them, because I just got some more, and we're going to have a meeting with the heads of this issue, and I want to present them with whatever I got. Thank you, Barb.
We certainly would like to have a stack of them here to pass out to the congregation on Sunday, if that would be all right. We would love to do that. And we are signing these cards, which read, could you run back and get one so that we can get, Brother Prince can get it on film, and so that we'll know what we're signing and why. And again, we want to give out the telephone number of the organizer of this awesome opportunity, Pastor Tom Jones. If you have any questions, if you would like to have a stack of these cards to pass out to your congregants, please give Reverend Tom Jones, our Justice and Witness Advocate, a call. His telephone number is area code 517-231-3304. We want to be as supportive as we can be. We have so far been discussing a lot of things regarding immigration, the issue of people dying either because of the cold or because of the extreme heat in the Arizona deserts. We have talked about the economic impact of addressing our immigrants in terms of driver's license and anything that has to do with automobile insurance and how that can have an awesome impact. We've talked about the morality issue, that this is a moral issue, and that's what makes it applicable to faith institutions across the board, no pun intended, that this really is a moral issue. And very shortly, at the beginning of our next segment, our last segment for this time, we will be hearing a theological perspective in terms of our involvement in immigration, a faith and interfaith issue. Thank you for joining us this day. We look forward to visiting with you again and hope you will include in your daily prayers, God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Until next time, serenity. Segment, and we will be hearing very shortly from Reverend Mari, who is here from our UCC Justice Witness Advocacy Office in Washington, D.C., and we welcome you again. We apologize profusely for not giving you the kind of contact information so that you could let us know that you were lost, so we could have come and found you. But we are grateful that you did find your way, that you pressed your way, that you were encouraged to continue your journey until you got here. So we are going to turn the mic over to you, and you have about 20 minutes.
Thank you very much. Pastor PJ and I am delighted to be here, and I would be very hard put to try to cross the Sonoran Desert, because if I cannot make it here from about 10 blocks away, I don't think that this is, God might have called me to Michigan, but she forgot to give me a map. Well, I'm delighted to be here with you nonetheless, and I realized that Thanksgiving is not until next week, but I thought I'd start with a Christmas story that you're very familiar with. So I'm going to be reading from the Gospel of Matthew, says, when the Magi had departed, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Rise, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt, and remain there till I tell you. For Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." And he rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod. I think it's very significant that, at least according to Matthew, that the earliest experience in the life of Jesus were to be born a displaced person, followed by exile. Joseph may have joined a caravan to travel in safety, maybe, but we can't begin to imagine how perilous a voyage it was to cross the Sinai desert with a newborn baby and the woman who gave him birth. Jesus was born in a manger and became a fugitive and an immigrant. At that historical time, he was of no account, totally disposable, vulnerable to the whims of rulers and the cruelty of men. 2,000 years later, many of God's children continue to be held of no account and must flee tyrants, famine, violence, and desperate poverty. All over the world, people like Mary, Jesus, and Joseph are forced to migrate through dangerous wilderness, vulnerable to the perils of the journey. Some brave the seas in rickety crafts. Our Haitian sisters and brothers have perished by the hundreds, by the thousands, trying to cross from their island nation. Others defy the hazards of the desert on foot. And again, many perished in the crossings. Instead of being honored for their bravery and tenacity, thanked for their back-breaking work, migrants have become scapegoats for the economic crisis of recent years. Chased out of town by punitive laws, apprehended in raids in many recent years in workplaces, incarcerated without access to legal counsel, deported to places very far from their hometowns. Migrant families have been torn apart and forced to live in the shadows. This is a great moral issue that our churches must discuss and work to overcome. I think that I would like to share briefly with you my experience as an immigrant, which was very different. I am a Cuban American, and I came to the United States when I was 13. We Cuban Americans are a privileged immigration because the government of the United States did not like the Cuban government. They still don't like each other very much. But all of us who became the first wave of immigration, we were welcomed with open arms. We were given immediately, the appropriate immigration papers so that we were not undocumented. We received every possible kind of assistance from the government. And we were allowed to stay. I never missed a day of school. Allowed to work, given a social security number. And I can tell you that the Cuban American migration is probably very probably one of the most successful immigrations in the history of the United States. The generosity of the federal government and the support that we received allowed all of us, the children, to go to school, not pick vegetables on some field, and the adults to try to learn English. They were encouraged and received all kinds of support to start businesses, small little bodegas, but you know, that's how we all started. And there are 2 Cuban American senators, one Republican, one Democrat, and we have done very well. In my family, everybody has a college degree, and we're first generation. I think that that's a contrast to say this is what happens when you welcome an immigrant and you give them a basic assistance, not anything that extraordinary, but the support that people need when they're trying to start out in life. Let's see. I wanted to mention a couple of things. I think that there's been so much good stuff that has already been said that it's time to say, okay, this is what happens when you get somewhere late, you know? All that, you know, a lot of the good stuff's already been said by all these other brilliant people, you know. So, well, we do what we can with what we got. So I wanted to tell you about the work that we do in Washington, D.C. For immigration. We have our office across the street from the Capitol, a beautiful building built by Methodist women when they were fighting prohibition, or they were supporting prohibition. But to this day, not a drop of wine can be drunk in that building. So, but we all of us who work in the 2 Methodist buildings, and it's a very ecumenical place. We have not only the Methodists, of course, but the Episcopal Church and the United Church of Christ and Church World Service and, you know, everybody. There's 2 buildings full of faith activists that can be mobilized in an instant. And we're mobilized a lot. It's been, the past few years have been really challenging. What happens is that the work of coalitions is in all of the different areas, but probably in no issue area as engaged as in immigration coalition. Even the Catholics joined us on that one. And they are very, very good on the immigration issue. And there is what is called the Interfaith Immigration Coalition that works on all of the issues and does a lot of work on the state sites in the different denominations. And we are, like everybody else, addressing not only the issues of legalization, which I'm really hopeful. I'm really very hopeful. I think that that remains a very important goal for our newly re-elected president, and we're going to remind him of that over and over. And the presidential program that around the DREAM Act is incredibly valuable in the, well, the Senate was supposed to take a vote on the DREAM Act. And it was the most pathetic thing I have ever seen. They voted not to vote. And you could see, and all of a sudden, you had all these kids that had come at a great sacrifice to come and you know, just plead their cause in front of these gentlemen and ladies. And they just decided not to address the issue, which was incredibly painful. And I have to tell you that every once in a while, you know, our role as people of faith, I remember I was just surrounded by these kids. And they, I mean, and we just said, okay, and we just, you know, just started to pray. And it was prayer amidst tears and songs. And it was so powerful. And I have said, we cannot leave these young people without a path so that they can become all of what God has meant for them to be, and that they can go as far as their strength and their energy and their passion will get them. And we're on our way on the DREAM Act, but it needs to go much further. I think that I'm pretty hopeful that immigration is going to be part of the second term of this administration. And I think that the work of organizing that takes place through folks like all of you that are obviously, you're doing all of the work right here. You know, you're the first responders a lot of times. But I am very happy to hear how much advocacy work is being done. The one thing that all of us have is the opportunity and the power of our citizenship, and we can go places where others can't. And if you knock on the door of your elected representatives, they have to see you. They might not like you, but they have to see you. But that's okay, so you don't have to like them either. But there is, you know, and I hear this over and over and over, that the work that those of us who are on the Hill do is limited. And I know that because these folks are trying to deal with, you know, 100 different things at a time. And there's one group after another that's knocking on their doors. But when those folks are at home, when they come for the frequent breaks that the Congress has, is probably the best and the most important time to schedule a visit. Because, first of all, they're always running for re-election. Doesn't matter, by January of next year, they're going to start running for re-election. And they want you to like them. Because if you like them, you might give them contributions for their campaign, and you may, you know, have your picture taken with them, and you might vote for them. So, you know, and there's a lot of very good people in the Congress, you know. I'd love to pick on them. But there's a lot of good people there too. But become best friends with the people that staff their home offices. You know? When you do, I don't know, different churches do it differently. You know, people write letters after church in some congregations, but just knock on the door. Go visit. your congressional representatives and speak to the issues, not as somebody, and I'm glad to be able to represent, I'm honored to be able to represent the United Church of Christ when, and because the one thing that's really important, and I'm really glad that there's some people here to know this, that whatever issues we care about, I can only advocate on issues that the General Synod of the United Church of Christ has resolutions about. I really appreciate, but really commend the Unitarian Church for that.
Excuse me, the lady to your left is also working very heavily in Arizona. Sister Bernard, very heavily. And so I hope that after this time you can have a conversation.
That would be really good. We have a very active church in Sahuarita.
Yes, that's where we are.
That's where you are.
Yes,
Randy Meyer's church.
Randy Meyer, and
Randy.
we are chartered out of his church, the
Are you?
Samaritans.
Oh, you're the Samaritans.
Yes.
Oh, of course. We started putting together a UCC table for immigration. Yeah, the first person I picked up the phone and called was Randy, of course. And
He's been many times to Washington.
oh yes, I know.
Small world.
Yes.
Yep. We've done a lot of work together, and we'll continue to work together.
He's a great guy.
He's a wonderful guy.
Isn't he?
He's a wonderful guy.
Can we fill some questions then?
Yes, absolutely. Don't give me a microphone.
Dr. Morrison?
So I'm very proud of what the president did by way of executive order. But I'd like you to speak to how is it also not true that our president, we have to hold his feet to the fire, is it not true that he has done he has ordered, under his administration anyway, more deportations?
Absolutely.
Under this more deportations than Bush. And so how do we account for that? What's that
Oh,
about?
I think that you keep raising that this is an issue. I think that I don't want to try to figure out why the administration has done whatever they have done. It's been dreadful. It's been dreadful, and there's been a lot of some of the stories. I don't think I have to tell you that of the different raids that have left innumerable children left behind when their parents have been taken up.
But you feel hopeful.
I
want to hear that hope because
okay, let me tell you, I have this theory, okay, that hope is the child of the coming together of faith and love. That it is when we put our faith and our love together that hope is born. I think that if I read, and I don't necessarily, I don't necessarily read the situations in Washington better than anybody else 600 miles away, okay? But I think that sometimes people act like, the toughest guy in the neighborhood. And that may give them the opportunity to do some other things. This is, well, this is just a hunch on my part. I have no, but that, and we'll see. We keep on, we've heard it,
and we've heard it again, and we heard all kinds of talk about immigration in the past couple of months. So now it's time to say, okay, let's do it.
Have another question here?
Seems to me like there's a lot of power that's been thrust on your group, and that would be in the form of the stats that came out of Florida. The increase of the Latino community that supported President Obama.
Yes.
Not only did they support him, it was a huge increase, percentage-wise. I hope that doesn't go away in anybody's minds. I'm sure you can use that to some of your good for some pressure maybe to put on them to help reconsider some of the ideas that they have put on us so far.
Well, I'm happy to tell you that President Clinton won Miami-Dade County. So a lot of people make a lot of noise, and a lot of people just vote. So, you know, I think that there's change. There's change. I think that we have a generation, my parents' generation, that came from such a deep well of grief that were not able to get over that, and in some ways they were hardened in their own positions.
It also seems to me that Mexico doesn't seem to fit the criteria we're recruiting on. Your story indicated that you came from Cuba. Some people would call that boat people that somehow got across, whatever way. A communist dictator country, which we didn't like very well. We were afraid of them back in the Cuban Missile Crisis. And also we had boat people come from Vietnam.
Right, and Haiti,
And Haiti. Mexico just doesn't fit that criteria. We just need to change Mexico. Then they'll be more acceptable.
No. I always, you know, even when looking at the reality of this horrible wall that we have, you know, in our southern border. I mean, I'm an environmentalist, and I'm a bird watcher, and I am horrified by that wall, what it's doing just to nature. And of course, you keep saying these are floodplains in some areas, and we've already seen in a lot of border towns this, you know, when the rains come, and they go hard, and the little rivers that are used to this overflow. So it's an obscenity. That wall is offensive.
Do we have other questions? Well, Reverend Mara, you got the lion's share of this opportunity, and we are very, very happy that you were able to make it. We want to thank all of the panelists. One had to leave, but we want to thank all of you for taking the time to come tonight to present some awesome information. And we look forward to making the information that you have made available to us here in Lansing across the nation at some point, and that we will have continued conversations, and that we will, now that we have been put together by divine order, we're going to stay together. How about that?
All right.
How about that?
All right.
And all of us are going to come right out there in Arizona with you, Sister Bernard. With you and your husband.
You're all welcome.
We're just going to all pack up and come out there
visit.
with you.
We'll take you down to the border.
Yeah, there's this particular sheriff in
Oh.
Arizona that I really would like to have a face-to-face talk. You know? I have a few things that I'd like to say.
He doesn't listen.
Yeah, but I can say it. It'll make me feel better.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, please feel free to call Pastor Tom Jones, Justice and Witness Advocate, area code 517-231-3304. It has been a privilege. It has been an honor to be in your today, and we hope that you will join us again on other occasions. We look forward to visiting with you and hope you will include in your daily prayers. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you, Deacon Sims. Thank you, Sister Kendra. Thank you, Dr. Melody. Thank you, Reverend Sharif. Thank all of you for spending this time with us together. Until next time, serenity.